We acknowledge that we were founded on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Attawandaronk, the Mississauga and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and now live on land that is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We have many representatives working across this land now known as Ontario, and we acknowledge that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the territory. We are grateful to be able to work and live on this land, and thankful to the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who have cared for these territories since time immemorial, and who continue to contribute to the strength of Ontario and to all communities across the province. To continue to center reconciliation, we encourage our team, partners, students, and teachers to take time to learn about the lands they are currently on. Visit native-land.ca for more information.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual field trip. My name is Rachel, and I'm your host from Farm and Food Care Ontario. We would love to see where all of you are tuning in from for today's field trip, so feel free to do a shout out in the comments. Today we'll be visiting Elliott Tree Farm located in Erin. Farmer Derek will be joining us and talking about his farm, including how the different growth periods affect the trees. And throughout the tour, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat for our host to answer. As some farms located in the country, the internet connection at Elliott Tree Farm isn't very stable out in the fields. So Farmer Derek has recorded his tour, and he'll be joining us in parts to answer the questions. The first stop of the tour will take us to visit the nursery, where the baby trees get started. Let's go have a look.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Derek Elliott. I'm from Elliott Tree Farm. We're a Christmas tree and maple syrup farm. Like to welcome everyone this morning. Today, we're here to talk about Christmas tree farming. And here we are in one of our fields of baby trees. This was a seedling that was planted this spring. So we're going to come back to that in just one second. A little bit about our farm. We're a circa 1850 family farm, and we've been growing trees on this farm for over 30 years. We've been open for Christmas tree experiences for 9 years, and we've been open for our maple experiences for 4 years. So every year we open our farm to families to come and visit us for 5 weeks during the Christmas holiday season, as well as 7 weeks during maple season, the maple season runs from middle of February on Family Day weekend to the middle of April. This is a family farm. I have my family help work with me here, and it's a lot of work on many days. Planting trees, tapping trees for maple syrup, and growing trees. I'm not sure if you've been to a Christmas tree farm or not, but it's a really, really fun way to spend and celebrate the Christmas holiday season. One thing that is interesting about our farm at Elliott Tree Farm, we're in Hillsburgh in the town of Erin, but we have the first crop of the season in Canada, which is maple syrup, and the last crop of the season, which is cutting a Christmas tree. So let's go back to a little bit about Christmas trees. So Christmas trees, I don't know if you have one at home, but some people have artificial trees. Some people have real Christmas trees. We love the real Christmas tree. And one thing about it is it's a sustainable, natural product. It brings that freshness into your home. For every tree that gets cut or harvested at our farm, we plant 3. That makes us sustainable. We hire local students, and we hire local people seasonally on our farm. So we we're employing local people seasonally when we need help, and we are a fully sustainable farm. So it's not like we just come in and cut down Christmas trees. We plant more than we actually harvest, because not every tree becomes a Christmas tree. It might not make it, might not get chosen as one. And with the conditions that we have recently experienced with the droughts, it's become awfully hard to grow a Christmas tree. Also, there are less, as the demand has gone up on Christmas trees, more people are taking a real Christmas tree into their home. There's been a bit of a Christmas tree shortage. And the reason is it's been harder to grow Christmas trees in Southern Ontario because of the climate. There are less Christmas tree farms. People are selling them. Not too many people are growing up and saying, I want to be a Christmas tree farmer. And a lot of farms are being sold for development. So at 54 years old, I'm one of the oldest Christmas tree farmers out there. So back to the tree. This was a seedling that we planted with our tree planter this spring. So that happens late April, early May, and we plant 4,000 of these trees. This particular tree is a white spruce, and it's very healthy. The top part, which is known as the leader of the tree, that's how much this tree grew this year. Once it gets going, these trees will grow about a foot a year. It takes 7 to 8 years to grow a 7 to 8 foot Christmas tree. So we have to exercise a lot of hard work and patience to grow these Christmas trees. Most important thing is to make sure that the tree develops its root base. And the healthiness of the tree up top will reflect how healthy the tree is down below. As you'll see, we put some fertilizer around the bottom of this tree, and that goes on in the autumn, and it gives just a little bit of nutrients for the tree to winter. And then when the summer or when the spring breaks and the sun starts to shine, all of the nutrients are there to feed that tree after a long winter. Once we've had 2 hard frosts, the tree goes to sleep. So this tree is sleeping right now.
That was a great look at Elliott Tree Farm to kick off this tour. So we've got a couple questions coming in, and remember, if you have anything that you want to ask Farmer Derek about tree farming, to put it in the comments. So I'm going to bring on Farmer Derek now to answer some of these questions. Good morning, Derek. I do have a question to kick us off, and that is, do you plant your trees from seeds, or do you get seedlings from another farmer?
Well, good morning, Rachel, and good morning, everyone who's attending this morning in all of our classrooms. It's nice to see all the school names pop up. Great question. So we do not plant from seed. We have a partner farm known as Somerville Seedlings, and they plant. They have a seed bed, and they germinate the seeds of the trees for 2 years, and then on the 3rd year they get transferred to our farm here, where we then plant the rooted tree seedling. Growing trees from seeds takes a very specific process, and you require greenhouses to do it, and we're not set up for that. So we've found that in farming, it's best to focus at what it is that you know how to do, and for us, it's growing Christmas trees and providing the Christmas experience. However, leaving the seedlings, the going from seed to seedling, to someone who specializes in that.
Great. And we have a question coming in of what kind of different trees do you grow at Elliott Tree Farm?
Well, that's a great question. So we grow spruce trees, pine trees, and fir trees. I see that there were 17 types of Christmas trees that the Lori's class had, or Mrs. Gummer's class had researched. Back in the olden days, our grandparents and your great grandparents, they would have looked for a Scotch pine Christmas tree. That was a classic. Very few of those are being grown now. The Christmas tree industry has evolved into more of a soft needle tree. We really like to grow our firs here because a fir tree looks like a spruce tree, but it's got that soft needle. And they have further retention for when you bring needle retention for when you bring your Christmas tree in the house into the warmth. We don't want any needles dropping.
Well, and speaking of needles, is there a reason that they don't lose their needles in the winter or in the snow?
Well, that's another great question. So, where there's a deciduous tree, a tree that has a leaf, it sheds its leaf at the end of the year, whereas a coniferous tree, which is a Christmas tree, which has needles, the tree goes to sleep in the winter. It will shed some in the fall and the spring, but it really goes to sleep and it holds its needles, and it's those needles that bring the energy in from the sun and the rain.
And what do you mean by they go to sleep?
Oh, so once we get some big frosts, the trees go dormant. So the ground freezes, and there's no nutrients for the tree to absorb. So nature, just like a bear hibernates through the winter, so do the trees. They go to sleep and then they wake up when the sun, the February, March sun starts to heat up and snow starts to melt and drip off the drain pipe. That's when the tree decides it's time to wake up.
Great. And we've got one more question before we have to move on to the next part of the farm. And they want to know, how long have you been a tree farmer?
Oh, so this has been a family farm for 40 years. And we started, we were actually a potato farm. And we started planting trees here about 30 years ago on a serious basis. And it was 10 years ago that I opened up where families could come and get a Christmas tree from our farm.
Amazing. So we're going to go and next visit the mature trees. So we'll bring Farmer Derek back on after this next portion of the tour to answer some more questions.
Thank you.
So here we are in one of our mature tree groves. So these Christmas trees were the same size as those little seedlings I showed you earlier. However, here we are 8 years later. So this Christmas tree is actually part of a grove where we've been harvesting this year. As you can see, someone chose this Christmas tree right here. We've now closed this grove to let the rest of the trees grow up for next season. This is one of our fields. So if we come over to this tree, we talked about the growth on the small seedlings. So here's how much this tree grew last year. That's the leader. So every year, trees grow based on the top of their leader. Over here, this tree grew probably just over a foot. So these are very healthy trees. So if this is the growth of the Christmas tree, we come down and we see how the buds set throughout the growing season. So this bud will break in the late May, early June, and that will be the growth. Just like a maple tree would its leaf would bud. So what we do is we also prune and shear the Christmas tree. So there's a cut from last year. There's a cut from last year. There's a cut from last year. This creates the perfect Christmas tree shape. So if we take a primary bud off, not only does it shape the tree, but it forces the growth into secondary buds, which makes this a thicker Christmas tree. Once that is done, then the rest of the season, we spend a lot of time cutting grass in these Christmas trees. We'll come through here 10, 12, 14 times, keeping the grass short so the bottom of our Christmas trees are all beautiful and not getting overgrown with grass. It was planted this spring.
Wow, it is really amazing what a few years does to the growth of a tree. So we're going to bring Farmer Derek back on to answer a few more questions. Welcome back, Derek. So there's quite the size difference between the baby trees in the nursery and these bigger ones. So what makes the conditions ideal for growing Christmas trees?
Well, you want to have this past year was actually the best year that I've seen for growing Christmas trees, because we had warm, hot, sunny days, and every 3 or 4 days, if you remember, we had rain. So you need sunshine and you need moisture. To grow a Christmas tree effectively, you need to have at least 10 millimeters of rain per week on that tree. You also want to make sure that the grass is away from the bottom, so the tree growing isn't competing with grass and weeds, which are also soaking up all of the valuable nutrients that the water provides through the soil.
And what happens if one of those trees gets sick? Maybe there's too much water, there's not enough sun.
Well, that's a great question. We do, not every tree does make it on the farm. And a few years ago, we had a big drought and we lost lots of baby trees. If a tree gets sick, we do what we can to maybe cut off a broken branch and try and have as much of the energy go into the healthy part of the tree, just create a small little surgery. However, with the amount of trees that we have on the farm, we have to really treat most of them the same with just good nutrients and proper weed control.
So our viewers also want to know, can you eat the sap from these trees? Are these the trees you're getting that delicious maple syrup from?
No, it's not. We have a maple syrup, or we have a maple sugar bush on the back corner of the farm, which has mature maple trees. You get maple syrup from a different type of tree than a Christmas tree. That's a sugar maple tree, which the leaf is on our Canadian flag, and Canadians are famous for. And the sap starts to flow through those trees coming up from the roots. This tree starts to wake up. Remember, the trees were asleep, and the sap starts to flow up from the roots when the days go above 0 degrees Celsius and the nights are below 0 degrees Celsius, and the sap flows up to create the leaves. And we tap the tree and get the maple syrup from that. You do not get maple syrup from Christmas trees.
Well, I know I'm looking forward to maple syrup season, but we'll have to wait a little bit longer to maybe see those trees. But for now, do the trees you have for the Christmas trees have pine cones on the trees?
Yes, they do. And some have more than others. Generally, trees, Christmas trees and deciduous trees, needle trees, spruce trees, pine trees, they have coning years. So they go in cycles where they'll cone more than others. So it's usually every 3 years you'll find more cones on the trees. Now we do find so the pine cones is what creates the seed. So if we wanted to create seed, and we've done it to experiment, we can, but there's companies and farms that specialize in collecting the cones and having them propagate into seeds. We also find people don't want a pine cone on their Christmas tree, so we take the cone off for them.
Do you have special equipment for that, or do you have to do it all by hand?
It's all by hand.
Wow. And what would be the tallest tree that you've had on the farm might have been a little tricky to get all those pine cones off of them.
Well, we've had some, we have taken we do large Christmas trees to towns and shopping malls. The largest one that we have ever cut down and taken to the city of Toronto to set up at a shopping mall was 45 feet tall.
Wow, that is a big tree. So people
Yeah.
might not know if that's pretty big, but what would be an average size Christmas tree?
The average size Christmas tree, people come here, they want to get a 7-foot tree. Most people are looking for a 7-foot tree because our you know, the ceilings in our homes can be 8 or 9 feet tall, and by the time you put a star on it or your tree topper, it's generally, you know, 6, 7, 8 feet tall.
And we talked about drought, but what else can negatively affect your Christmas trees? Are there any pests that you have to deal with?
Oh yes. So when the trees are small, the pests can be the rabbits. The bunnies like to come and nibble at the trees. And when they get larger, we have not had this issue on our farm, but a lot of Christmas tree farmers report that deer will come and eat their trees, to the extent where some Christmas tree farmers have had to put fences around their Christmas trees to keep the deer out from eating. What is really nice about the Christmas trees, though, we do have all kinds of wildlife that live amongst the Christmas trees. So jackrabbits, foxes, bird nest. We find bird nests in Christmas trees all of the time. Having a tree farm really attracts a lot of birds to the farm, which we really, really love to see all the birds.
Okay, well, we're going to keep moving along here, and we're going to go and visit the fresh cut trees. So again, we'll bring Farmer Derek back to answer a couple more questions, but let's keep moving on.
So here we are now
Thank you.
down at our fresh cut Christmas tree garden. So when people come at Christmas time, after we've grown those baby trees into trees that can be harvested, we either let people harvest their own tree or we harvest them for them, where they can come and still pick the perfect Christmas tree within our tree cellar. There's our truck ready for a delivery of Christmas trees right now. And here's some of our trees. We have trees of all sizes. Here's a big 9 to 10 foot Christmas tree. This tree would have taken us 12 to 13, maybe 14 years to grow. It all depends on the growing season. Now we're walking into our tree cellar. It smells amazing. When people come here, they can't believe the smell of these fresh cut trees. These trees were cut last Wednesday, and Elliott Tree Farm has the freshest Christmas trees in Southern Ontario because we cut in batches. So here's one of our 7 to 8 foot firs, very similar to the trees I was showing you out in the field. And someone's going to come and choose this Christmas tree. Something that's interesting, in our tree cellar, we're below our 1850 barn. This barn used to have animals in it. But we've cleaned it up and opened it up where the trees sit inside this fieldstone basement. And with the cool cellar temperature and the protection from no wind or no sunshine, these trees will stay fresh a long, long time. In fact, I've left a tree down here, forgot about it, believe it or not, and came down on Easter weekend, and it was still a fresh tree here. It's been really great to have everybody join us here, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have. Merry Christmas from Elliott Tree Farm.
Wow, I can just imagine how that room must smell. So we're going to bring back Farmer Derek to answer one last set of questions before we let him get on his way. So welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you,
My
Rachel.
question to you, after seeing those fresh cut trees, is when I take home my tree, how do I best take care of it?
So when you leave the farm here, the first thing we do, whether you get a tree from our tree cellar or you cut your own, we put a fresh cut on the end of the tree, just to make sure that any dirt or any gumming over with sap on the bottom of the tree would not restrict water from the tree absorbing the water. When you put your tree in your tree stand at home, when you set your Christmas tree up, you then put water in it, and that tree is going to be really thirsty the first day or two. So you have to keep an eye on it and make sure you put lots of water in there. You're going to see that tree absorbing the water, but that is the tree absorbing nutrients while it is in your home. And so just lots of water. Try and set it up in a place that's not too close to a fireplace or a heater in the home. The heat does dry the Christmas tree out.
So how early can I get a Christmas tree, and how long would it last after it's been cut down?
So we open on November the 16th, and people come and get their Christmas trees then, and they last right into early January. And so a Christmas tree can last anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks with proper care. And the freshest, best smelling Christmas trees are either the spruce or the fir.
So we had a couple students notice that some of the trees were different shades of green. Do you know why that would be? Are they different kinds of trees? What makes them darker?
Yeah, so because we have different types of trees, each tree looks a little bit differently. So like a white spruce is actually a very green tree. A blue spruce is a little bit bluer. The firs are more green on the top and have a little bit of blue underneath.
And what's the oldest tree you've ever grown on your farm? I'm sure there's ones that are there that have been there for some time.
So our farm, so the oldest one that we've planted would be 40 years old because we've had our farm 40 years. However, back in our maple forest, there's a part of the, when the settlers were clearing the land to farm hundreds of years ago, they left a section of maple forest on our farm where we have our sugar shack and make our maple syrup. And some of the maple trees back there are over 250 years old. So to give you an idea of that, they would have been little seedlings like I showed you earlier today in the late 1700s, long before Canada was even a country.
Wow, those are some old trees. So when you cut down a tree, do you remove the stumps? And how do you go from the old trees to the new trees? Do you rotate through? A lot of questions coming in.
Yeah, so it takes about 8 to 10 years to grow a Christmas tree. So we really have our farm sectioned off into 10 or 12 different areas. And we like to focus on finishing cutting one area, and then after the season is over, we then go through. We have a friend, another farmer, who has a small tractor with a grinder on the front of it, and it grinds the tops off the Christmas tree and goes about this far below the soil, and then it mulches the remaining stump. And then that following autumn, we would then disc. So disking is a process behind our tractor. It's similar to a plow, but doesn't roll the dirt right over. It just starts to mash up the soil. And then we plant what's called a cover crop. We plant ryegrass into that former Christmas tree field and let it sit for a year, and then or let it sit over the winter, and then the next spring we would plant our Christmas trees. We plant our Christmas trees between the middle of April and the middle of May every year into this ryegrass, and the ryegrass helps keep the weeds away from the baby trees, and as it grows, it keeps the tree shaded from the sunshine.
Wow, so your job's a lot more than just planting trees and cutting trees.
Yes, it is.
So how do you prepare for future years? How many Christmas trees would you maybe sell in a year, and then know how many to plant for maybe 20 years from now?
Well, we're planting about 4,000 trees, Christmas trees per year. So times 10 years, we constantly have about 40,000 Christmas trees at different stages of growth. You know, we don't know how many we're going to sell every year. However, we would have to, depending on the size of the tree, at certain ages, we need to start pruning the edges of them to shape them. And there's different to-do lists and jobs and chores for each field, depending on what stage of growth they're at.
Okay, we've got time for 3 more questions. So this one's kind of a fun one. How heavy or light is a Christmas tree compared to a grade 1 child?
That's a really good question. I think a Christmas tree would be about the same weight as a grade 1 child. It would be very, very close. You know, a 7 to 8 foot, a 7 to 8 foot Christmas tree, it can be as light as 30 pounds, and it could be as heavy as 60 pounds. It all depends on on the growing conditions. If we don't get a lot of rain or sunshine, if the growing conditions aren't as favorable, the tree takes longer to grow. So you could have the same size tree from a different year that is much lighter because it grew quicker.
And after everyone's done celebrating the holidays, what should people do with their trees? Is there somewhere they can be recycled, somewhere they can look it up?
A lot of towns and cities make it available to put your Christmas tree at the end of the driveway, and they'll pick it up on certain days. Or you can take it to the transfer depot. There's also new things where some towns and cities are using them to create habitats for different animals.
And then the last question we have is, what is your favorite thing about your job?
My favorite thing about my job is the fact that I get to be outdoors and farming and enjoying the farm while creating an environment for people to come and enjoy. I love the fact that people come to our, aside from the satisfaction from the hard work and growing trees and that lifestyle, seeing the smiles on people's faces when they come here at Christmas time and create memories is one of the favorite things of my job.
Okay, so that's all we've got time for today. Thank you for such an amazing tour. Is there anything that you want to add, where people can find your farm? Anything you want to add before we head out?
I would just like to say it's been a pleasure to join all of you this morning. We are Elliott Tree Farm. We're in the town of village of Hillsburgh in the town of Erin. And you can find us at our website. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. And we specialize in Christmas tree and maple syrup experiences. We're also home to the Maple Syrup Museum of Ontario. The farm is open for Christmas trees until this Monday, December the 23rd. And then we open for maple season during Family Day weekend. I'd love to welcome you and your families to our farm at any time. And perhaps we'll see you for another tour at maple season.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Farmer Derek, and thank you to everyone that joined us today for our virtual field trip to Elliott Tree Farm. We had a great time, and we hope you all have a great holiday season. Remember to support your local farmers and food processors, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everyone.